Hello and welcome to another Fred Atkins interviews with people in the Melbourne comics area or possibly other places depending on who I get next. Today we have creator of Mr. Unpronounceable and the accompanying books and accomplished artist Mr. Tim Molloy. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So last time I forgot to put the All-Star sign up, so I've got one here. I'm just going to cover your book, but that's fine.
Okay.
It's fine. We all know what it is. It's a Mr. Unpronounceable book brought to you by Milk Shadow.
Yes.
So, we're doing this today, not just because you have a new book coming out, or you have a new book, you have a new art show kind of accompanying that book, that's coming up on the 25th of June.
Yes.
And where is that?
It's at the Bean Art Gallery, which is a new gallery that's just opened recently in Brunswick.
Okay.
It's on it's in Spider Place, which is just a little...
Oh, I know that place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a group show called Transmogrify, exhibiting with... couple of other artists, Ben Howe and Jack Hempson, who are amazing.
Yeah, and I've seen in the kind of promotional stuff for that show, there's some sculptures, and they're kind of hard to explain, but it's like a skull, but the jaw is like up here. Yeah. And for anyone that hasn't seen your stuff before, I feel like that really works well with your stuff. So it's a different artist, but your stuff... Well, it's not exactly the same. It's still in that kind of, I don't know, supernatural.
I think there's sort of the proprietor of the gallery, John, is really into sort of, there's one way to say it, body horror. Yeah, that's probably the quickest way to explain it. Yeah. As well as a lot of other things, but yeah, the show, I suppose, is just a sort of, we're just three people, but we're kind of doing a lot of things around that sort of thing. Okay.
But a lot of your work in these books in particular kind of revolve around that in some way. So it's Mr. Unpronounceable, who, I don't know, through reading them, I don't think I give anything away. He's not a human.
Mr. Unpronounceable? Yeah. Well, I guess, well...
There are constant times where he dies.
He's humanoid.
Yes, he is a humanoid.
At least.
I'm just thinking of the multiple times I've seen, in at least the first two books, where his face or some aspect of him has been completely destroyed.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Yeah, he dies a lot. Yeah. I'd really put him through the blender.
So, and thinking about that, what kind of artist would you kind of liken your stuff to? What got you into making art?
I mean, that's a sort of...
Or actually, I should say...
That's a broad question.
Yes. Was there any one or any particular style that you said, this is what I want to do?
For comics in general, or...
For your art in general.
Well, I would say the answer to that question is no.
Okay.
but I can elaborate, I suppose. I think like any artist is not really just going to be like, I've only read... this person and I'm going to ape that, because then that's all they do. I think that you end up being a you're a conglomeration of all these different sort of things that kind of come in, and I sort of but I mean I started off like any other kid who ends up being into comics, like Asterix and Tintin and that kind of stuff was pretty par for the course in my childhood for everybody. And then I don't know, it's a pretty well-worn road, I think. Sort of Marvel, DC, Spider-Man, blah blah. And then 2000 AD was kind of a thing, because that was exciting because it was like there's like 5 different stories and they're all kind of about different things, and there's like a kind of horror one and a sci-fi one and a.
And so a lot of especially the books that I've read, I'm not quite finished the last one yet, but even though it's all about the same character, you still have that kind of anthology style in that. It's Mr. Unpronounceable, and in this one it's a bit more of a kind of a gag or a joke, but in the next one it's more of a world building thing. So he's in a completely different place, doing completely different things. The one that I'm thinking of, which I think is in the first one, is when he's trying to look at what's on the other side of this door.
Oh yeah.
And he's just going mental. He can't understand what is up there. He's sending in, is it like there's like a drone, like a fly?
Yeah, how does that one go?
And so he's trying to find out what's on the other side of the door, and it's just him.
Yeah,
looking on the other side.
There's two. The thing with Mr. Unpronounceable is that there are, untold versions of himself,
Yes.
running around a sort of time
Well,
period.
yeah, in the second one, you do that a lot. There's multiple Mr.
Yeah,
Unpronounceables.
yeah.
They
Even,
kinda come
even
into
more so on the, I've sort of tripled down
Yeah.
the third one.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, I really like art that kind of swallows itself and
Yeah.
goes round and round and...
So, again, I'm not going to spoil anything in the third one. I was just reading it. The first, a story, I guess, is someone reading Mr. Unpronounceable, trying to find him so he can get the next book. Then he reads the next book, and then the next chapter is the start of what the other character started reading.
Yeah, it's confusing.
Yeah.
I sort of I know that I'm on the right track when I'm writing Mr. Unpronounceable stuff, and it, there are individual stories where it's like ding, 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 that's how it goes. But
Yeah.
then when I start piecing it together into a book, I know that I'm on the right track when I start to get confused about what is going on, So it's books within books within books,
Yeah.
and things that occur down here in the timeline.
Yeah.
Wherever they influence things that happen at the beginning, but then they can't possibly do that because
Yes.
of, you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean.
Yeah, I get lost myself.
Yeah, so is that something that you're mindful of when you're actually writing it? Like, clearly you've thought about it, but when you're writing it, do you have a set timeline set out? Do you have
No.
No.
It's an adventure for me.
Okay.
Like I'm trying to.
So you're not concerned with the specifics of time travel?
No,
It's just
no,
whatever happens, happens.
no. It's like the paradox is right there
Yep.
to start with, and
Yes.
the story is inside the paradox.
Mr.
You know
Unpronounceable,
what I mean?
his life is a paradox.
Yeah, the plot hole is the story.
Yes,
So,
okay.
and the narrative occurs within the plot hole,
Okay.
rather than the other way around.
Well, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
It stops people from arguing about what happens and why it happened.
Mm.
It happened because that's what the story is.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's like life, really, isn't it?
Exactly.
What can you do?
So with moving on from comics, only slightly though, for your actual kind of art exhibition work, it's from the stuff that I've seen of yours, it's similar but also different. It's like a Mr. Unpronounceable book with him taken out of it. It's just kind of, floating islands or weird trees or
Yeah.
a man that is a tree
Yeah.
or a tree that has a face.
I sort of see kind of everything, not everything that I do, but especially if I'm putting on a show and I'm doing paintings and things, I sort of see a comic as like a narrative within a world, but
Yeah.
like a painting is like a snapshot
Yeah.
of something in that world. Like, you're looking at a National Geographic and it's like an exotic photo of some distant locale.
Yeah.
So oftentimes a lot of things that might occur in a like a watercolor painting that I might produce will be influenced from something I've done in a narrative, or years later I'll remember that painting and go, oh, I could cram that into a story somehow,
Yeah. And so
it's all related.
Yeah. And so for this upcoming exhibition, did you have actually like a theme or like a story in mind for it or is it just kind of disparate things put together?
For the actual work on the wall?
Yeah.
Just disparate things put together.
Okay.
Yeah. I sort of actually, what I was thinking when I was doing it was if there was a title, because it's a group show, we've all got to kind of share the space, and it's called Transmogrify. That was the best thing we.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be pretty apt, I think, for the thing in general. But if I was going to call my little wall anything, I'd probably call it like supporting cast or something, or like background characters.
Yeah.
They're sort of. I'm just doing lots of little. There's a
Yeah,
lot of little characters that are just sort of people you might see on the streets and street scenes in the comics.
Yeah. And do you ever? Because I just had a thought. In the second one, you have there's a huge scene which I can't quite remember how it goes. It's on a train, going through a desert.
In the which one?
In the second one?
In the train on the desert. That might be in Shines and Shakes.
Oh, so it is.
Yeah,
Of course.
Silent
So
one. On the bus.
yes.
Yeah.
All right, that's what it was.
Yeah.
From one of your other books, It
Yeah.
Shines and Shakes and Laughs, which is your older stuff kind of compiled together.
Yeah.
Because that one, well, throughout that entire book, because it is more, again, kind of an anthology, because there's no kind of like one story or
Yeah.
character, it's more, and in terms of story, it's not particularly strong as in like beginning, middle, end. It is more just a tour of this world.
Yeah.
Do you actually have an idea of what that world looks like? And you're like, oh, this bus scene happens here.
Yeah.
And then just kind of over here in this.
Really vaguely. And I sort of, there's the city of the ever open eye.
Yes.
So that's the the metropolis that things occur in, essentially. You know, it's like a dream city that's, you know, you can keep walking in one direction forever and never find the end, or you can take that little alley and you're at the you're there at the edge, you know, and either you're at the 100-year ocean, so it has a border with the sea that if you go upon it, you're there for 100 years. You know?
Okay, no matter what.
No matter what. And then there's stuff out there too, like that's kind of like, you know, there's lots of islands and the sort of weird sort of esoteric sort of silent stuff. A lot of that's kind of influenced by time that I've spent in Southeast Asia.
Okay.
So, you know, just limestone cliffs and boats.
Well, that's what I was going to ask about next, is where you kind of, or what kind of stuff, or writers, or what kind of art you kind of draw inspiration from for this kind of thing. Because there is a kind of H.P. Lovecraftness to some of it, but not strongly. Not in other stuff that I've seen people kind of take off H.P. Lovecraft.
Yeah, I think it's easy with H.P. Lovecraft to be like, I'm going to be like H.P.
It's
Lovecraft.
just a weird random monster. Yeah,
You know,
it's a
like,
weird monster with tentacles and wings.
Is it Lovecraftian? Is the question.
Yeah.
I sort of, you know,
because I wouldn't say it is Lovecraftian. It's bizarre in the same way.
Yeah.
But is there any kind of particular people that you would read a lot of, or?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's funny. Like I can pinpoint like exactly where certain things came from.
Yep.
You know. I mean, Mr. Unpronounceable himself is he comes from being inspired by a painting by a guy called Helnwein, who's a German, I guess German, maybe Austrian, hyper-realist, you know, particular painting of somebody who looks approximately like Mr. Unpronounceable.
Okay.
And just, you know, you just sort of look at that and you do a comic because you have an idea. But I mean, I don't know, I guess my biggest influences would be H.P. Lovecraft. But I mean, like, in a funny kind, like I sort of I think a lot of what I do is actually kind of comedy.
Yeah.
You know, and so I sort of those ideas of this new book is actually very much about, like, you know, cosmic kind of nihilism and you know, the uncaringness of reality, you know, and sort of deep atheism, I suppose. And Mr. Unpronounceable's struggle is that he wants to be, like, in possession of secret knowledge and also the center of the universe. Yes. So it's like, you know, it's kind of like that's what this book is kind of about, like this conflict between the fruitless quest for, you know, that kind of stuff. And I that's kind of an H.P. Lovecraft thing for me, you know, like it's just, you know, the shuddering, aching void that drives you mad, you know.
Yes.
Mr. Unpronounceable was already mad. So
yes.
it's Stephen King was a huge influence.
Okay.
I you know, when I was a lot of people, a lot of people maybe in our generation, we sort of started reading his books a bit too young or something. You know, like reading It when you're like 11 is like, what?
Oh, it's got a clown in it. Cool.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff which he does, which I find quite inspiring in terms of world building. You know, like, I mean, I don't know if you know a lot of his larger sort of umbrella stuff with, like, the Dark Tower and.
I've read. Was it The Drawing of Three?
Yeah. So you kind of
and The Gunslinger.
Yeah. So, you know, his sort of, it's all part of the same story somehow.
Because a lot of his stories take place in the same town.
Yeah.
But they don't say, oh, another story from. I can't remember what the town's called now.
Derry.
Oh, there's a different.
There's Castle Rock.
Castle Rock. Yeah.
It's all that sort of little, you know.
Yeah, because it's all meant to be this kind of one area of America. Or some of it is, at least.
Yeah, but I mean, then there's that broader structure where you have, you know, things like The Stand. I don't want to start talking about Stephen King for an hour, but you know what I mean. Like, there's this sort of this thing where you can kind of like you can have a story about the whole world being decimated by an apocalypse, and then have another story about, like, you know, like Stand By Me. You know, it's like it's the same because of characters and because of, like, multi-dimensionality and all of that. You know, fiddling with it's the same story. You know?
Exactly.
I really enjoy that idea, you know, that you can kind of create these meta universes within meta, you know, with or without. I don't know, man. Everything is an influence.
Okay.
You know, I try not to read too much Mobius.
Okay.
Because I will just rip him off.
Yeah.
As much as possible.
Just reprint Mobius stuff.
Yeah, I just don't.
I didn't want to say the last 10 pages of Mr. Unpronounceable just photocopied Moby speakers.
That's true, but he's dead now, so.
So does that count?
R.I.P.
Yeah.
You know, what can you do?
Just write copyright Mobius down.
Copyright.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Well, so we're kind of coming to the end of it now, and I know towards the end I kind of want to ask if there's anything that you're reading now that you would kind of want to suggest maybe, or something recently that you think has been kind of new and interesting.
That I'm reading right now?
Yeah.
Well,
or any like a new artist that you've just discovered, or an old artist that
I just recently got on Instagram, so I'm just like,
okay,
this high school kid that I'm following. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I forget his name. I feel bad about that.
Okay.
Right now. I'll tell you what. Part of what sort of fed into this one was a writer called Thomas Ligotti.
Yep.
I actually, a lot of the stuff that I draw influence from is not really comic stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is a long-standing kind of understanding of my own propensity to kind of just steal. So I figure that we're not,
Yeah, I know.
It's very, very easy to just soak stuff up, and so I've kind of like almost kind of kept myself away from comics a lot.
Do you find that actually makes it easier for you to make a comic?
Probably not. I mean, I'd probably be much better at it if I was reading more comics. I'm just like, how do you make a comic?
Yeah.
I've never read one.
Well, I did want, actually, I will ask one quick question about that. So how did you actually get your stuff through Milk Shadow? Did you just...
James just got in touch with me. Oh. James Andre sent me an email.
And were you just putting stuff out just generally, like...
Yeah, I mean, I've been self-publishing for a long time, and internet and blah, blah, blah. I guess he just, caught wind of it somehow.
Yeah.
I was going to talk about Thomas Ligotti.
Oh, yes, please keep going.
The person who, like, I don't know if you saw True Detective.
Yes.
The first season of that.
Yes.
I didn't see the second one. Apparently it wasn't very good. But
they said it started poorly and got a bit better, but not...
Oh, well, that's a good review.
Yeah.
that's as best you could hope for.
I actually haven't seen the second season, so I'm not sure.
The first season was pretty good.
Yeah.
I thought. And a lot of that really sort of kind of just crushing kind of like nihilistic kind of cosmic sort of horror. There are accusations of plagiarism. I'm not making them myself, but Thomas Ligotti was a huge influence on that show, and because of that, and he's this really obscure sort of, well, fairly obscure sort of writer in the States, but people in the know, like, that this guy is like the heir to H.P. Lovecraft's kind of, so it's like Poe, Lovecraft, Ligotti, this sort of weird American Gothic fiction sort of strain of, I don't know what it is, just horrible, nihilistic. But his fiction is wonderful, beautiful, terrifying, surreal, and I don't know, just like bleak.
Yeah.
And that's one thing. But the book that I've been reading, which actually really fed into this, was the same book I think that the guy who wrote True Detective read. It's called The Conspiracy Against the Human Race.
Right.
And it's a non-fiction book, but it was nominated for the Bram Stoker Award.
Okay.
Didn't win it because it's actually not a horror fiction book, but it's a book of his sort of. He's basically collecting nihilistic philosophy ideas and like filtering them through his own writing,
right?
Which is wonderful writing, because his prose is beautiful, lyrical and strange. But it's a hard read because it's essentially antinatalism. We should just stop breeding. Consciousness is a curse. It's not a gift.
As
an
I've thought
aberration.
many times. Yes.
But I've got a kid now, so I can't really, I've got to pretend that I haven't read the book.
Okay.
Or something. It's good. It says it on the back, essentially. Like, don't read this book, and if you do, you've kind of got to pretend. But yeah, I don't know. That's sort of, this whole thing is just this sort of journey through thought and philosophy and really armchair unqualified. Yeah, okay. I should say. I should qualify by saying I'm unqualified. I'm just an idiot on the internet, and occasionally, you know what I mean? It just goes on and on and on. But it's a good book. If you want to feel depressed, Not mine.
well,
Conspiracy Against the Human Race
all right.
by Thomas Ligotti.
All right. But another also good book is Mr. Unpronounceable and the Infinity of Nightmares. And it's coming out on the 25th of June.
25th of June.
Okay. And it's at the...
Be an Art Gallery.
Yep.
Sparta Place in Brunswick.
Okay.
I think that the show opens at 6. A couple of other great artists. There'll be lots of people and free wine.
Excellent. And the other books are available through Milk Shadow Books.
Yes.
You can probably get them online. There's a few other stores you can probably get them in retail.
You get them here.
We get them here, All Star Comics. I didn't want to say it, but thank you. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you.
And good luck in your launch.
Cheers.
All right.